we want to do. We're going to continue to do our part, and we've actually started our part of the EA reservoir a year ahead of schedule, and we're going to continue to work hard. And I know with Speaker Sproul's support, as well as Senator Simpson, we're going to be able to do well this legislative session. We also were able to, in last legislative session, establish a Resilient Florida program where we'd be able to fortify infrastructure, make Florida more resilient, hurricanes, flooding, all the different things that Mother Nature can throw at us. And we were able to do hundreds of millions of dollars last year. We'll do hopefully the same or more this year. This House and Senate also did a bill that I signed where there's going to be a dedicated funding source going forward for these projects. And so today we're happy to announce another $404 million in funding for 113 resilience projects across the state through the Resilient Florida Grant Program. And the good thing about this is if you look between what we did, what we've done so far this year, is almost every one of them has a local match. And so if we're doing $20 million for a project in Miami-Dade County, that is almost always going to be matched by at least $20 million from the local community. And so all in, today's announcement of $404 million, that's going to be at least $700 million of investments up and down the state of Florida. Now, how these projects are selected are based on criteria and where the need is. And so you can imagine when you're talking about issues like this, that South Florida would score very high. And so of the $404 million that we have announced today, $160 million of that, covering 35 projects, is in Miami-Dade County. So that's a huge, huge thing. There's also a significant amount in Broward and Palm Beach. So this is really, I think, going to be something that's going to be beneficial. This is in addition to the $270 million in projects that we proposed in December, along with Speaker Sproul. And so you're going to see really significant resources being put to help fortify Florida. So thanks to Speaker Sproul for joining us to support the Resilient Florida initiative. No one's ever done anything like this in the history of the state. And also thanks Senator Simpson for his support. And we look forward to continue to work with those folks, continue to do it. Now, this is just one part of a lot of stuff that we've been able to do to help support Florida's unique environment. We did pass a comprehensive Clean Waterways Act to improve water quality in Florida. We have made historic investments, not just in Everglades restoration, not just in water resources projects, but also things like Florida Springs, also things like coastline initiatives to help, supporting protecting coral reefs. We've done all these different things that have really, really made a difference. And so we called for this creation of Resilient Florida Grant Program. The legislature answered the call, and we continue to make huge progress. And so my view from the very beginning of 2019 when I became governor is our environment, but particularly our waterways, are really the backbone of the state, both in terms of the quality of life, the economy, just the environmental beauty of the state. And so we had a responsibility to leave it better than we found it. Today shows that we're continuing along those lines. We're going to continue to do it. So this is another huge day, but it's not the end. We're going to be doing more in the ensuing months, working with the legislature. And so speaking of that, I want to bring up the Speaker of the House, who's been really instrumental in getting us to this point, Chris Sproul.
Thank you, Governor. It's great to be with you today. As I look behind the press today, I'm looking at the beautiful waterways here in Miami-Dade County and this beautiful building and this museum that we are. And I think about the impact that this bill is going to have on places just like this, on waterways that look just like that. Because the reality is, living in this beautiful place, and as Floridians, we get to vacation where we live. It's one of the benefits that you get when you become a Floridian. But the challenges that we have is making sure that we're protecting beautiful buildings, our coastline, our homeowners, our grandparents and their homes from our waterways, from Cat 4 and Cat 5 hurricanes, from flooding that happens throughout our state. As the governor said, there is no state in America who has done what we are doing and what we are talking about today. And that is planning for our future, not 3 weeks from now or 3 days from now, but 30 years from now. And the reality is, when myself and President Simpson came in leadership in the legislature, we realized that we had a rare opportunity, because Governor DeSantis has been the most environmentally friendly governor in the history of the state of Florida. And I'm prepared to stand by that statement, whether it's the Florida Everglades, the waterways behind us, or the many canals that go through South Florida. Governor DeSantis has done more than anyone to protect that. This Always Ready bill was designed for the first time to put real experts behind the wheel of making sure that we were prioritizing Florida's environment, vetting projects. Think about all the roads here in South Florida, right? Those don't go up willy-nilly. That's planned years in advance. There's a work plan. It's designed to make sense and to be planned, to be built in a systematic way. But we didn't do that in Florida's environment. We just kind of use it as like a pork barrel buffet. It didn't benefit the state in a holistic way, but that all changed when we passed the Always Ready bill that was filed for us by Representative Demi Busada Cabrera, who's a rising star here in the Miami-Dade legislative delegation. And for the first time, those bills are going to be able to put us on a framework to do better than any other state in America, to plan for resiliency, to plan for sea level rise and coastal floodings. And that's going to have a real impact, not just on our homeowners here in our state, but in our state's bond rating. Just a couple of weeks ago, because of the bill that the governor signed, our bond raters were in the legislature testifying about how Florida's bond rating, which was already good, is better now than it's ever been before. And what's one of the main reasons they gave? This bill right here, because we are planning for our future. And look, when we let the facts dictate the truth, Miami-Dade was the winner. Of all the hundreds of millions of dollars that were spent, as the governor mentioned, $160 million, which really leveraged is closer to $300 million because of the match, is going to come here to the voters and to the residents of Miami-Dade County. So, Governor, thank you for your leadership on this. We look forward to making this a priority. I know it's continued to be a priority myself, as well as the Senate President, as we plan to always be ready for Florida's environmental future.
All right, we have Sean Hamilton, Secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection.
Thank you, Governor. It's a pleasure to join the Governor and the Speaker here today, again, to celebrate another environmental milestone for the state of Florida. You know, as you've heard and mentioned by the Speaker and the Governor, Florida is faced with some unique environmental challenges, including sea level rise, flooding, and storm surge. We are very fortunate under the governor's leadership and the Florida legislature that, and with the support of our state and local governments, we have continued to recognize resilience of our coastal and inland communities is at the forefront of environmental challenges here at the state. Storm surge, flooding, erosion, saltwater intrusion, and stormwater management will be exacerbated by sea level rise, and we're seeing those impacts already in our communities. And to be ready for the changes that will occur as sea levels rise, we must continue to plan and prepare our communities for the possibilities of those impacts. To tackle this issue, back in May of 2021, Governor DeSantis signed into law Senate Bill 1954. This comprehensive legislation ensures a coordinated approach to the Florida's coastal and in our internal resilience planning throughout the community, as the Speaker noted. The targeted funding and directives establish a structure for resiliency that follows the best available science and data while enhancing our efforts to protect inland coastal resources that act as natural barriers against sea level rise. Late last year, DEP submitted the state's first ever statewide flooding and sea level rise resilience plans to the state legislation. Again, to the Speaker's point, the first ever plan that we will continue to build on in years to come to set that roadmap, not just 2, 5, 10 years, but 30 years into the future. And today I'm glad to be here to announce additional projects that will mitigate and prepare for and reduce the existing and anticipated adverse impacts of sea level rise, flooding, and storm surge. The 113 projects that the governor mentioned include 35 projects right here in Miami-Dade County, like a project right here at Vizcaya Museum Gardens, which will increase the height of the existing seawall and implement natural and nature-based features to protect regional, cultural, and historical assets from coastal flooding, including storm surge, king tides, and sea level rise. Or the Cutler Pit Land Acquisition Project, which focuses on land acquisition between Biscayne Bay and develop areas to protect our freshwater aquifer, store stormwater, and provide a buffer from storm surge and flooding. Or a series of Miami-Dade County projects that address flooding and sea level rise by fortifying critical assets, including 3 regional critical drinking water facilities serving more than 2.3 million people, producing over 300+ million gallons of drinking water per day. Today is a great step forward for resiliency in the state of Florida. Thank you all for your leadership and partnership, and I look forward to continuing to work alongside the governor, our Chief Resiliency Officer, Dr. Brooks, and our elected officials as we do more to bolster the resiliency in the state of Florida. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Wes Brooks, CRO.
Thank you, sir. It's so gratifying to be home for this amazing announcement today. And as you all know, Miami-Dade County government's slogan is delivering excellence every day. Well, with all due respect, Commissioner, I think our governor has given you all a run for your money. I want to thank Governor DeSantis and Secretary Hamilton, along with Speaker Sprouse and the Florida legislature, for their continued focus on the planning and execution of resilience projects around our great state, especially through this Resilient Florida program. 2 months ago, Secretary Hamilton and I stood on the shores of Tampa Bay with the governor to announce the first ever statewide flooding and sea level rise resilience plan. That plan featured a commitment of more than $270 million in state funding for 76 high priority projects that were requested by local governments to help protect critical infrastructure, secure water supplies, boost wetlands conservation, and reduce flood impacts. As Chief Resilience Officer, I spent last month touring several of those projects here in Miami-Dade County, saw overdue stormwater improvements to low-lying roads in Surfside, visited a planned project for new coastal flood mitigation infrastructure in the Lake Belmar neighborhood with your Chief Bay Officer, saw a local restoration and enhancement project in Cutler Bay to buffer critical wetlands, and also went with Miami-Dade County EEL staff to see prime acquisitions of wetlands in southern Miami-Dade County to support not only the county's resilience goals, but also the state's Everglades restoration objectives. As you heard, today we're announcing another slate of 113 resilience projects, including one right here at Vizcaya that's going to help protect and preserve Miami's architectural and cultural heritage for future generations. All these projects are funded with more than $400 million in Resilient Florida program funds, and taken together with the previously announced statewide resilience plan funding and local matches, we're looking at $1.2 billion in investments for projects that will be built over the next 3 years. But we can and must do more to support resilience priorities of Florida's coastal and inland communities, which is why the governor, in his Freedom First budget request this year, asked the legislature to support another $500 million for another round of Resilient Florida projects. Under our governor's bold vision and leadership, the state of Florida is leading the way on resilience through action. And I look forward to continuing to enhance our communication, coordination, and innovation across federal, state, and local entities to help ensure a better prepared and more prosperous future for Floridians in every community across our great state. Thank you, Governor.
Well, we're excited. We think this is going to make a big difference, and we look forward to continuing to work with the legislature over these next 2 months to keep the momentum going. Fortunately, you look at Florida's budget situation, they just upped the revenue estimates. I mean, we take in every month. We've been taking in $400, $500, $600 million over estimate almost every month for the past year plus. So they upped that, and they added another $4 billion in estimated revenue between the end of this fiscal year and next. That's going to give us probably an unprecedented budget surplus, and I think it's a testament to good stewardship and having an open state and a free economy. So we're going to continue to build off that success, but I think we have the wherewithal to be able to be in this fight in the long term. When you're running big deficits or something, then your hands get tied. I'd also like to just we were in Pinellas County earlier, and because we were in the Tampa Bay area, had to make a comment about we didn't know what Tom Brady was going to do. Hopefully he would say, but the news came out I think within like the hour after that that he was retiring from the NFL, and I just want to say to have witnessed him play over the last 2 seasons when almost no one would be able to play at that age, and for him to play at the level that he did. He had one of the best seasons of anybody in recent memory this past year at age 44. Of course, brought home a Super Bowl to Tampa Bay. And I can tell you, as a kid that grew up a Bucks fan, we're used to losing. I know we had a little bit of a run with Dungy and John Gruden in the early part of the 2000s, but that kind of faded very quickly. And Tom single-handedly brought the team from kind of a mid-level NFL team to Super Bowl. And I do think, the Rams game was tough. I think had they beaten the Rams, I think they would be in the Super Bowl and would be the favorites to win. So to be able to have him in Florida for 2 years was really something that a lot of people, not just in the Tampa Bay area, really appreciated. He is the greatest of all time that's ever put on a pair of football spikes. I don't think it's even close. And you look at who's the best team sport athlete of all time, and as a kid growing up, I never thought anyone would surpass Michael Jordan. If anyone has done it, Tom Brady has done it. And so he deserves an enormous amount of respect and credit for what he's done over an incredible career, but particularly to be able to bring a couple great seasons to Florida fans. We really appreciate it. And as a long-suffering Bucks fan, I really enjoyed last year's Super Bowl. I was heartbroken at the loss against the Rams, but that's just the way that things happen. Sometimes you don't get. And I know him and Giselle like Florida. I always ask people when they come, are you glad you moved? And I think they are, and I think they're going to continue to be Florida residents. So we'd be honored if they continue to stay here. That'd be great. So wish him all the well in the next chapter in his life. But he's had a hell of a career. With that, take some questions.
Governor, are you planning to suspend or otherwise discipline Broward Sheriff Gregory Tony for lying about killing in Philadelphia, his drug use, other matters, and not being forthcoming with you when you appointed him?
So I talked with my staff. We're going to review everything and take a look. We saw the initial reports, and so it'll be something that we will be reviewing in the coming days.
Governor, can you speak to the redistricting process? How far are you in the speaker and the Senate president on coming in terms of what map you guys put forward, specifically the congressional map?
Right. So, as I think most people know, State House and Senate each do their own maps. It goes to the Supreme Court. Governor doesn't have a role. The congressional map, I have to sign it or veto it. So obviously, we want a map that is going to withstand legal scrutiny. We're in the process of working through. It's mostly legal issues. It's not really political issues. I think we're going to be able to get to a good spot and have a good product. I can tell you, did you see what they did in New York City with some of these maps? They literally squiggle around and all this stuff. It's really unbelievable what they've done. They're supposed to have similar provisions to us. You look at what they did in Illinois, really unbelievable to hear some of these people carping for all these years and then to see, kind of what these monstrosities, that they created. So it's more of a legal, we got to get a couple legal issues squared away, then I think we'll be able to get it done. Yes, ma'am. So I think everybody, particularly, and although I would say, yes, we've seen a huge boom in Miami. I don't think anyone's ever seen anything like this, what's going on in terms of the people that want to be here. Yes, it's high end, but it's also middle-income families want to move and all across the thing. And I think what you've seen is, of course, real estate values have gone up as a result of that. You talk to people down in Miami and they will just get offers on their home that aren't even selling their home. And so that's something that I think because of what we've done in Florida, we really have a lot of people that have wanted to leave high tax states, lockdown states, crime-infested states to be able to come to Florida. So that is obviously created an upward pressure. But I think what also is creating an upward pressure is the inflation that you see. And they say it's 6 or 7%. And obviously Biden 6 months ago said no credible person thought there was actual inflation. I can tell you, I've been talking about it for a long time. We've seen it in Florida for a long time. We've seen this supply chain for a while. And so what you're seeing is, if you're talking about an apartment complex to have more workforce housing, single family homes, the cost of that is dramatically increasing. And we in our budget actually, we fully funded different construction projects in the current year's budget. I'm having to go back and put tens of millions of dollars more into my budget, the legislature is going to have to pony up more money for the same projects we already funded because of how much more expensive all the materials are. And so that's a huge problem. And so the number one problem with costs that I think is something, because we can't artificially reduce demand to live in Florida. I mean, like, it's a free country. People can go. I often say, I'm not asking anybody to come because I love the people we have here. We've got great people, great opportunities. So, I'm not gallivanting around the country saying, please come to Florida. But it's a free country and many people want to do that. So there's just going to be a certain amount of demand there. Now, eventually that's going to come down to, I think, to planet Earth a little bit on that. But the inflation, I think, is the biggest threat. Because, we fully funded the Sadowski Affordable Housing Trust Fund in our budget. And I've done that every year since I've been governor. Because, you have places, particularly in South Florida, folks who are more entry level, it's more expensive to live. And so you have to have those options. The problem, though, with the inflation, even fully funding that, it's going to be harder to provide the type of options for people because the construction costs are going through the roof. So what I would say is the biggest problem ailing our economy right now is the inflation that's really been driven by the federal government just printing trillions of dollars, and they want to do even trillions more. That is causing what we're seeing. You can't just print money infinitum. The laws of economics kick in. So they need to get that inflation under control, and then I think that will be the biggest benefit in terms of affording not just multifamily housing, single family housing, but really everything down the line. Gas is up huge. Groceries are up huge. All these other things that are so significant. That's why I just look at it, I'm saying 6 or 7%. Well, just talk to other people and see how expensive all the things that they're used to getting are. It's much, much bigger than 6 or 7%. Yes, ma'am. So, my view, we're a storm-prone state. I mean, there's nothing, we're not going to be able to just stop being vulnerable. I mean, we've had storms for as long as anyone can remember. The whole state, if you go back far enough in time, was entirely underwater. So what we're going to do is we're going to mitigate what Mother Nature's throwing our way. I think we've done a great job of doing that. But anyone that says that somehow, the state of Florida can prevent storms from happening or do some of that stuff, I think about it, I'm like, man, I was like, these are the same types of folks who were saying that like locking down would cause COVID to go away or all these other things, that we've heard. So we, I think, have a more realistic approach. We understand the risks, we understand the challenges, and we're doing the best to provide protection to people to be able to meet those challenges. So what we're trying to do with the legislature is give parents the ability to inspect the curriculum so they know what's going on in their schools. I think a lot of parents, have very strong beliefs about, what is appropriate for a school system to be discussing, and certainly in terms of like trying to affirmatively push kids in one direction or another in some of these areas, becomes very problematic. And I know parents they want to have a basic education. So what we want is, have curriculum transparency, make sure that the parents are part of this. There are people in our country and in our state who take the position that parents really have no role in this and that they just need to be kind of in the dark about what's going on. We believe sunlight's the best disinfectant, and I think that whether it's things like CRT, whether it's other things involving curriculum, having that transparency is something that's very significant. We did pass a Parents' Bill of Rights, thanks to Speaker Sprouse and Senator Simpson, really was significant. But now we want to continue to make sure that we're empowering parents. But make no mistake, in Florida, the parents have a seat at the table, and we want to make sure that parents are involved in age-appropriate material in particular. And if you have them in the dark on this stuff, then you end up seeing, I think, a lot of problems. So parents at the table, full curriculum, transparency, and I think we're going to be better off for it. Okay, we got one more. I'd say during inflation, but as you know, I mean, inflation's gone up. So these are all things that have been submitted within the last, what would you say, Sean, 6 months? Yeah. So within the last 6 months, so I think we all knew kind of the situation we were dealing with. But it is the case that, if this inflation isn't brought under control, that's going to have a ripple effect on all and everything we're doing. And so, if it's, they say 6 or 7%, but let's say that goes into, that's compounding the costs on everything we're doing. And so I would not say that any of the infrastructure that we've announced so far will 100% cover. We think that the inflation has been kept in mind when they were doing it, but this is something that's really, really problematic. And if you look, it depends on the different things. You look at talk to the home builders about lumber, how much that's gone up. I mean, just huge increases in things like lumber. So we are mindful of that. And all I've said to folks is, look, when we commit to something, we want to see it through. So we committed to projects last year in a variety of different areas. We came time, and I signed the budget last year. When would we do it? I guess we would have done it in May. So we signed the budget in May or June. We did see inflation, but then it really picked up even more. So then by the time I had to do my governor's recs in December, we had to put more money in. And so that is possible, but I do think when the locals were submitting this, I think that they did it with those rising costs in mind. And so let's put it this way, I think those estimates are going to be more accurate than the estimates that we did in last legislative session, just because I think everybody's assuming that this is something that's probably going to be persistent with us for the next, look, I don't know how long it's going to persist. I think you need to reverse course on stop doing inflationary policies in D.C. The good thing about Florida is we don't really have a credit card. We've got to we pay as we go, and we've been able to build up a very robust surplus, which we're happy about. Now, part of what we're going to do, make sure we're protected for a rainy day. I am somebody, because you have all the inflation, I want to provide people relief in any way we can. I think the most direct way we can provide people relief is a gas tax holiday, so that they're saving at the pump. I mean, if we could bring the cost down from $3.30 to well, actually maybe it'll go. I'd like for it to go down, but if we can get that lower, that makes a huge difference, especially in a place like Miami-Dade County, where you got so many people that commute from the western part of the county over into different parts of downtown and other areas that are further east. They're driving maybe 50, 60 miles a day, some of them, and to be able to have some relief on the cost of gas, I think is something that's very, very significant. So we're navigating. We have not had this level of inflation in our country for probably, I think, about 4 decades. You got to go back to the late 1970s and the early 1980s to see anything like we've seen there. And I think a lot of people remember going through that, and you had massively high interest rates. It was very, very difficult. So I just pray that they reverse course so we don't have to go down that road going forward. Okay, one more. So yeah, my view on all this stuff is, like if I were in Congress, people ask me would you have supported the initial Biden stimulus that had $1 trillion plus in March? I would not have, because I feared the inflation and I think we were printing too much money. However, if they're giving money to states, then I'm going to fight for Florida's fair share of that. I mean, we're all federal taxpayers. It isn't like Florida isn't paying a huge amount of money in federal tax. In fact, in 2020, we had more adjusted gross income move into the state of Florida than any other state, I believe, in the history of our country. But we were 3 times what had moved into Texas. And I think 2021, we're even higher in terms of that. So we've got people here that are paying a lot of taxes. Now, fortunately, they don't have to pay as much tax to the state government because we don't want an income tax here. We're happy that we have the lowest per capita tax burden in the country. We're happy that we have things like homestead that limits how property tax. We're happy with all that. Nevertheless, they're taxpayers too. So my view is whatever's out there, we have a responsibility to fight for Florida. And so yes, that infrastructure, I think, we were with Senator Rubio and some of the congressmen. I mean, a lot of that stuff's not going to infrastructure. They're spending like $15 billion on speed cameras to be able to catch people speeding. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want that. That's bringing us even more surveillance. Like, we need more surveillance in our society right now. So there's trees they're putting in. They're saying that highways are racially discriminatory. I don't know how a road can be that, but this is the wokeification of federal policy when you see this stuff. So there's a whole host of problems with it. And I think the Republicans who opposed it were right. However, once you're doing it, if you're going to fund Everglades, then fund the EAA reservoir. Yeah, we're going to fight for that 100% because Florida taxpayers are on the hook for that. And of course, my kids and your kids and some of your grandkids are going to be on the hook for the exorbitant bills that are being run up in Washington, D.C. I mean, if you would have told me 10 years ago that we'd be $30 trillion in the hole, I would have said there's just no way. But nevertheless, here we are. So do good policy, don't do inflationary policy, and Florida will be fine, and we'd probably be better. But when you're doing these bills, if you're going to give all this money to New York and California, certainly Florida, especially because if you look at the national economic numbers, if it wasn't for states like Florida and Texas, I mean, our entire picture on the macro economy would be less. I mean, it's really been the states that have been open and, that have rejected the Faucian lockdowns that have kind of punched above our weight. So we're happy to do that. We're going to continue to do that. But the flip side of this is whatever's out there, I'm competing for because I want to be able to deliver for every Floridian that we can. Okay, thanks everyone. We'll see you soon.